The ship came out of hyperspace with a soft hum, and Jack pressed his face against the small window of his cabin. Below him, Prime spread out like a jewel against the black of space. The planet was beautiful in a way that made his chest tight. Blue and silver clouds swirled over continents that glowed with soft light. Even from orbit, he could see the famous crystal cities, their towers catching the light of the twin suns. Jack was 34 years old. He had brown hair that was always a little messy, tired eyes, and hands that knew hard work. He was not a diplomat. He was not important. He was just a security officer, one of 6 assigned to protect the human delegation during the treaty talks. His job was simple: stand in the background, watch for danger, and keep his mouth shut. He thought about his daughter as the ship began its descent. Little Emma was 7 now, living with his sister back on Earth. He had not seen her in 2 years. Space travel was slow, and his work kept him far from home. He wondered if she still remembered his face, or if he was becoming just a voice on video calls, a stranger who said he loved her from across the stars. The shuttle landed on a platform made of something that looked like glass but felt warm under his boots. Soldiers in silver armor stood in perfect lines, their faces hidden behind masks that showed no expression. Behind them, the Crystal Palace rose into the sky. It was the most beautiful building Jack had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of frozen light, shifting colors as the suns moved across the sky. Towers twisted upward like flames made solid, and bridges of pale stone connected them high above the ground. Ambassador stepped off the shuttle first. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent 30 years talking to alien species, and her face showed nothing as she looked at the honor guard. Behind her came the other diplomats, dressed in their best clothes, trying hard not to look nervous. Jack and the other security officers came last. They wore simple gray uniforms and carried no weapons. The head made it clear that humans would not be allowed to bring weapons into the palace. Jack felt naked without his sidearm, but he kept his face calm. An official came forward to greet them. He was tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that shimmered like polished silver. His eyes were gold, with no whites, and they seemed to look right through Jack as if he was not worth seeing. The wore robes of deep purple, and when he spoke, his voice was like music, each word perfectly formed. "Welcome to Prime," he said. "I am Lord, servant of Her Majesty Queen. You will follow me. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will not touch anything or anyone. These are the rules. Break them and you will face the Queen's justice." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He had read the briefing documents. They were an old species, older than humanity by thousands of years. They had built an empire of 40 star systems when humans were still learning to make fire. They saw themselves as the highest form of life in the galaxy, and they saw humans as children at best, animals at worst. But they had resources that humanity needed, and humanity had things they wanted in return. And so here they were, trying to make friends with people who looked at them like insects. The walk through the palace was long. Jack tried not to stare, but it was hard. Every wall was covered in art that seemed to move when he was not looking directly at it. The floors were polished so smooth that he could see his reflection walking below him. Nobles passed them in the halls, their silver faces turning away as if the humans smelled bad. Finally, they reached the throne room. The doors were 30 feet tall and opened without a sound. Inside, the room was vast, big enough to hold 1,000 people. Light came from everywhere and nowhere, soft and golden. At the far end, on a throne that seemed to be carved from a single massive crystal, sat Queen. Jack had seen pictures, but they did not prepare him for the real thing. The Queen was beautiful in a way that was almost painful to look at. Her silver skin was flawless, her golden eyes bright with intelligence and cold with power. She wore a crown of living light that floated above her head, and her robes pooled around her feet like liquid metal. Beside her, on a smaller throne, sat a child. Princess was small even for a child. She looked about 8 or 9 in human terms, though Jack knew she was probably much older. Her eyes were the same gold as her mother's, but where the queen's eyes were cold, the princess's eyes were sad. She sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, looking at nothing. Jack felt something twist in his chest. She looked lonely. She looked like Emma did when he had to leave, standing at the window, watching his car drive away. He pushed the thought aside. It was not his place to feel sorry for alien princesses. He was here to do a job. Ambassador stepped forward and bowed low. The queen did not rise, did not smile, did not do anything to suggest she cared that the humans had traveled across the galaxy to meet her. "You may speak," the queen said. Her voice was cold and perfect, like ice shaped into sound. And so the talks began. For 3 days, Jack stood in the background and watched. The negotiations were slow and painful. They asked for much and offered little. They treated the humans with barely hidden disgust, as if doing business with them was dirty work that had to be done. Jack watched and said nothing, and tried not to look at the small princess who sat beside her mother. But sometimes, when no one else was paying attention, he caught her looking at him. Her golden eyes were full of questions, full of curiosity, full of something that looked almost like hope. He told himself it meant nothing. He was wrong. On the 4th day, the talk stopped for a ceremony that Jack did not understand. The diplomats were taken to observe some kind of religious ritual, but the security officers were told to stay behind. They were given a small courtyard to wait in and told not to leave. Jack waited until the others were playing cards in the corner, then slipped away. He did not know why he did it. Maybe he was bored. Maybe he was curious. Maybe he just needed to walk, to move, to do something other than stand still and pretend he was not there. Whatever the reason, he found himself walking through empty hallways, deeper into parts of the palace where humans were definitely not supposed to go. The palace was quiet. Most of the servants and guards were at the ceremony. Jack walked carefully, staying in the shadows, ready to turn back if he saw anyone coming. But no one came, and soon he found himself standing before a door that was different from the others. It was smaller, older, and covered in carvings of flowers and vines. He pushed it open and stepped through. The garden took his breath away. It was hidden in the heart of the palace, surrounded by walls so high that only a circle of sky showed above. Flowers grew everywhere, but they were not like any flowers Jack had ever seen. They glowed with soft light, blue and purple and pink, pulsing gently as if they were breathing. Small creatures that looked like butterflies made of light floated between them, leaving trails of sparkles in the air. In the center of the garden was a fountain that made no sound. Water rose and fell in complex patterns, but it moved in complete silence, like a dream of water rather than the real thing. And sitting beside the fountain, her knees pulled up to her chest, was Princess. Jack froze. Every rule he had been given, every warning, every briefing screamed at him to turn around and leave. To speak to the princess without permission was a crime. To be alone with her was worse. If anyone found him here, they might kill him. They might kill the whole delegation. But then he saw her face, and he could not move. She was crying. The tears on her silver cheeks caught the light from the flowers and glowed like tiny stars. She was trying to be quiet about it, her small body shaking with the effort of holding back sobs. She had not seen him yet. She thought she was alone. Jack thought about Emma. He thought about all the times she had cried when he had to leave, all the times she had sat alone in her room because he was not there to comfort her. He thought about what kind of man walks away from a crying child. He stepped forward, heard his footsteps and looked up. Her golden eyes went wide with shock. For a moment they just stared at each other, the human soldier and the alien princess, in a garden where neither of them was supposed to be. "Please do not tell anyone," whispered. Her voice was small and scared. "Please, I am not supposed to be here either. I am supposed to be at the ceremony, but I could not. I just needed." She stopped, unable to finish. Her hands were shaking. Jack should have left. He knew that. Instead, he walked over and sat down on the edge of the fountain, leaving a respectful distance between them. "I will not tell anyone," he said. "Are you okay?" Stared at him as if he had spoken in a language she did not understand. "What? Are you okay? You were crying." She looked away, embarrassed. "It does not matter. I am a princess. I am not supposed to cry. I am not supposed to feel anything." "That sounds lonely," Jack said. His head snapped back toward him. Her golden eyes searched his face, looking for the trick, the trap, the hidden meaning. She found nothing but simple honesty, and it seemed to confuse her. "No one has ever asked me how I feel," she said slowly. "Not ever, not once in my whole life." "That is a long time to go without anyone asking." 112 years, said. "That is how old I am. 112 years, and you are the first person to ever ask me if I am okay." Jack felt his heart break a little. She was over a century old, but in that moment, sitting in the glowing garden with tears on her cheeks, she looked exactly like his 7-year-old daughter. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked. And she did. For the next hour, talked and Jack listened. She told him about her life in the palace, about the endless ceremonies and rules and expectations. She told him about her mother, who loved her but was always busy, always distant, always the queen first and a mother second. She told him about the courtiers who feared her because she would one day have power over them, and the servants who were not allowed to speak to her as a person. She told him that she had never had a friend, not one, not ever. Jack told her about Emma. He told her about bedtime stories and tickle fights, and the way his daughter laughed when he made silly faces. He told her about the pain of being away from her, the guilt that ate at him every day. "She sounds wonderful," said. "She is. You would like her. She is about your age if we are counting the way you look instead of the years." Smiled. It was a small smile, shy and uncertain, as if she did not quite remember how to do it, but it was real. "I have never met a human before," she said. "My tutors told me that humans were primitive and simple. They said your species was barely worth noticing." "What do you think now?" Looked at him for a long moment. "I think my tutors were wrong." Jack smiled. Then he looked around the garden and saw a flower that glowed brighter than the others, a deep blue that was almost purple. He reached out and carefully picked it. "Here," he said, holding it out to her. "A gift for being brave enough to talk to a primitive human." Took the flower with trembling hands. She held it like it was the most precious thing in the universe. "No one has ever given me a gift before," she whispered. "Not like this. Not something that was not about duty or politics or power." "Then I am glad I could be the first." Looked up at him, and her eyes were shining with something that Jack did not recognize. Later, he would learn that they believed in soul bonds, connections that formed between beings who truly understood each other. The bonds were sacred, permanent, and rare. He did not know that he had just formed one. "I have to go," Jack said, standing up. "They will be looking for me, but it was nice to meet you, Princess." She said, "Call me. Friends do not use titles." Jack smiled. "Okay, I am Jack." He walked away, not knowing that he had just changed the course of history. The final ceremony was scheduled for the 7th day. Jack had not seen since the garden. He had tried to catch glimpses of her during the negotiations, but she was never there. He told himself it was better this way. What they had shared was a moment, nothing more. He was a human. She was an alien princess. There was no future there, no possibility of friendship. In a few hours, the treaty would be signed, and he would return to space, and they would never see each other again. But he could not stop thinking about her, about the tears on her silver cheeks, about the way she had smiled when he gave her the flower, about the look in her eyes when she called him her friend. He hoped she was okay. The Grand Throne Hall was filled with thousands of nobles when the human delegation entered. Jack had never seen so many of them in one place. They stood in perfect rows, their silver faces turned toward the throne, their golden eyes watching everything. The hall was so quiet that Jack could hear his own heartbeat. The crystal walls soared up to a ceiling so high it was lost in shadow. Light poured down from somewhere above, soft and golden, making everything look like a painting. Banners hung from the walls, each one bearing symbols that Jack did not understand. The floor was polished so smooth that it reflected the crowd above it, creating the illusion that they were standing between two worlds. At the far end of the hall, Queen sat on her crystal throne. She was dressed in robes of pure white, and her crown of living light burned brighter than Jack had ever seen it. Her face was cold and beautiful, a mask of perfect royal dignity. The small throne beside her was empty. Ambassador led the human delegation to their place near the back of the hall. They were far from the throne, surrounded by nobles who looked at them with barely hidden disgust. Jack took his position behind the diplomats and tried to become invisible. The ceremony began. A priest in golden robes stepped forward and began to speak in the language. Jack did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. This was sacred. This was important. This was the kind of moment that would be remembered for centuries. The priest spoke for a long time. Then the queen rose from her throne and everyone in the hall bowed low. Even the humans had been taught this part. Jack bent forward, his eyes on the floor, waiting for the signal to rise. Then the great doors at the back of the hall opened. Jack straightened up and looked. Princess stood in the doorway, dressed in white like her mother, her silver hair braided with threads of gold. She was supposed to walk to the throne and take her place beside the queen. She was supposed to play her part in the ceremony, the perfect princess, silent and beautiful and obedient. She did not move. Jack saw her golden eyes scanning the crowd, searching for something, for someone. She looked past the nobles, past the priests, past the guards with their silver armor. She looked at the humans in the back of the hall. She found Jack. And she smiled. It was not the small, shy smile from the garden. It was a smile of pure joy, the kind of smile a child makes when they see someone they love. Her whole face lit up with it, and for a moment she did not look like a princess at all. She looked like Emma, running toward him after months apart. Then she started moving. Not toward the throne, toward Jack. She walked at first, her small feet quick on the polished floor. Then she was running, her white robes flowing behind her, her braided hair coming loose. She ran straight through the crowd, past the shocked nobles, past the frozen guards. And the entire palace stilled. Jack could not breathe. He could not think. He could only watch as the princess of the empire ran across the grand throne hall toward him. Guards reached for their weapons. Nobles gasped and stepped back in horror. Someone screamed. Ambassador turned pale and grabbed Jack's arm, but he could not move. The queen rose from her throne, her mask of dignity cracked by shock. Her golden eyes were wide, her mouth open. She raised one hand as if to stop her daughter, but no words came out. Did not stop. She did not slow down. She ran all the way across that vast hall, past thousands of staring eyes, and she threw her arms around Jack. She hugged him. The silence was absolute. Not a single person in the hall breathed. The moment seemed to stretch out forever, frozen in time like a picture. Pressed her face against Jack's chest and held on tight. Her small body was shaking, but this time it was not from sadness. It was from happiness. It was from relief. "I found you," she whispered. "I was afraid you had left. I was afraid I would never see you again." Jack did not know what to do. His arms hung at his sides, useless. He could feel the eyes of every in the hall burning into him. He could feel the queen's gaze, cold and sharp as a blade. Then he looked down at her face pressed against his uniform, at her thin arms wrapped around his waist. And he stopped caring about the eyes and the danger and the rules. He hugged her back. The hall exploded into chaos. Guards rushed forward with weapons drawn. Nobles shouted in anger and fear. The queen's voice rang out above the noise, commanding silence, commanding order, but no one was listening. Everyone was staring at the human soldier holding the princess of the empire in his arms. Ambassador stepped in front of them, her hands raised. "Please," she said, her voice calm even though her face was pale with fear. "Please, there must be some explanation. Captain is a good man. He would never—" "Silence!" The queen's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Everyone froze. Even the guards stopped moving. Queen walked down from her throne, her white robes trailing behind her. The crowd parted before her like water before a ship. She walked across the hall, her golden eyes fixed on Jack and her daughter. She stopped 3 feet away. Up close, she was terrifying. Power radiated from her like heat from a fire. Jack could feel it pressing against him, trying to push him back, trying to make him let go. He did not let go. "Release my daughter," the queen said. Her voice was ice and fire, calm and burning at the same time. "Release her now." Turned in Jack's arms, but she did not let go of him. She faced her mother with her chin raised and her golden eyes defiant. "No," she said. "He is my friend. He is the only friend I have ever had, and you will not hurt him." The queen stared at her daughter. Then she looked at Jack, and something in her expression changed. The anger was still there, but underneath it, Jack saw something else. Something that looked almost like wonder. "What have you done?" the queen whispered. "What have you done to my daughter, human?" Jack opened his mouth to answer, but spoke first. "He was kind to me," she said. "That is all, he was kind." The queen looked at the flower in his hand. Jack had not noticed it before, but had been carrying it with her, the blue flower from the garden, still glowing softly. And the queen's face went pale. "A soul bond," she breathed. "You have formed a soul bond with a human." The crowd heard. The whispers started spreading like fire through dry grass. Soul bond, soul bond, soul bond. Jack did not know what that meant, but from the looks on the faces around him, he knew that everything had changed. Everything. They took Jack to a room deep beneath the palace. The walls were made of dark stone instead of crystal, and there were no windows. A single light hung from the ceiling, cold and white. Jack sat in a chair in the center of the room, his hands bound behind his back, surrounded by guards in silver armor. They had separated him from the other humans. Ambassador had tried to protest, but the had ignored her. The delegation had been confined to their quarters. Jack had been brought here to this dark room to wait. He did not know how much time passed. Hours, maybe. He thought about Emma. He thought about what would happen to them if he died here. The door opened. Queen walked in, followed by a group of indifferent colored robes. Some were purple like Lord. Some were gold like the priest from the ceremony. And some were white, with silver symbols painted on their foreheads. The queen stood in front of Jack, looking down at him with eyes that burned like golden fire. "Do you know what you have done?" she asked. "I talked to your daughter," Jack said. His voice was steady even though his heart was racing. "I gave her a flower, that is all." "That is not all." The queen's voice was sharp. "You have formed a soul bond with the heir to the empire, a bond that is sacred, a bond that cannot be broken. Do you understand what that means?" Jack shook his head. "No, I do not know what a soul bond is." One of the in white robes stepped forward. He was old, his silver skin lined with age, his golden eyes clouded but still sharp. "A soul bond is a connection between two beings," he said. "It forms when there is true understanding, true compassion, true meeting of minds. It is the highest form of connection our people know. It is sacred. It is rare. And it has never in all our history been formed with a non." "Until now," the queen said. Her voice was cold. "Until this human." "I did not mean for anything to happen," Jack said. "I just saw a little girl crying, alone in a garden. I could not walk away from that. I have a daughter. I know what it feels like when a child is hurting and no one helps them. You expect me to believe that? The queen stepped closer, her face inches from his. You expect me to believe that you wandered into a forbidden part of my palace by accident, that you found my daughter by chance, that you formed a soul bond through simple kindness? Yes, Jack said, because that is the truth. The queen stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned to the in white robes. Scan him, she said. Jack felt his stomach drop. What? The old approached him. My people are psychics, he explained. We can see into the minds of others. We can see their thoughts, their memories, their intentions. We will know if you are telling the truth. And if I am lying? Then you will die, the queen said simply, and so will every human in this palace. Jack thought about the other members of the delegation. He thought about Ambassador, who had dedicated her life to building peace between species. He thought about the other security officers, who were just doing their jobs. He thought about all of them dying because of something he had done. Then he thought about, alone in her room, clutching the flower he had given her. Do it, he said. Scan me. You will see that I am telling the truth. The old psychic placed his hands on either side of Jack's head. His palms were cool against Jack's skin. Then Jack felt something strange, a pressure inside his skull, like someone was opening a door in his mind. Memories flooded through him. He saw himself as a child, playing in the backyard of his parents' house. He saw himself at the academy, training to be a soldier. He saw himself holding Emma for the first time, her tiny hand wrapped around his finger, her eyes looking up at him with complete trust. He saw the garden. He saw crying. He felt again the moment when he decided to stay, the simple human instinct that told him he could not leave a child alone with her pain. He felt his own compassion, pure and uncomplicated. He felt his memories of Emma, the love that drove him, the guilt that haunted him. He felt the simple desire to help, to comfort, to be kind. The psychic pulled his hands away. His old face was pale with shock. Well, the queen demanded, what did you see? What scheme is this human running? What does he want from my daughter? The old psychic was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Nothing, he said. He wants nothing. There is no scheme, there is no plan, there is only, he paused as if searching for words. There is only love, compassion, the pure desire to help a child who was hurting. The queen stared at him. That is impossible. I saw it with my own mind, the old psychic said. I saw his memories, his thoughts, his heart. This human formed a soul bond with your daughter through nothing but kindness. He saw a lonely child and he treated her with warmth. That is all. That is everything. Another psychic stepped forward. Let me see, she said. She placed her hands on Jack's head and the strange pressure returned. After a moment she pulled away, her golden eyes wide. He speaks the truth, she said. I have never seen a mind so simple, so pure. There is no deception in him. He genuinely cared for the princess. He genuinely wanted to help her. One by one, the other psychics scanned Jack's mind. One by one, they stepped away with the same expression of shock. This should not be possible, one of them said. The humans are supposed to be primitive. They are supposed to be incapable of the depth of feeling required for a soul bond. Perhaps, the old psychic said slowly, we were wrong about them. The queen was silent. She stood in the center of the room, her face unreadable, her golden eyes fixed on Jack. He could see the conflict in her, the struggle between what she had been taught about humans and what she was learning now. Where is my daughter? She asked finally. She is in her chambers, Your Majesty, one of the guards said. She refuses to leave. She says she will not eat or drink until she is allowed to see the human. The queen closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something had changed. The anger was still there, but it was smaller now, pushed aside by something else. Understanding, maybe, or the beginning of it. Bring her here, she said. A few minutes later, the door opened and ran in. She did not look at her mother. She ran straight to Jack and threw her arms around him again. "You are alive," she whispered. "They did not hurt you." "I am fine," Jack said. His hands were still bound, so he could not hug her back, but he leaned his head against hers. "I am fine." The Queen watched them. Her face was pale, her eyes bright with emotions that Jack could not read. "The bond is real," she said quietly. "My daughter has given her heart to a human." "Is that so terrible?" Jack asked. The Queen looked at him. For the first time there was no anger in her eyes, only sadness, only confusion. "I do not know," she said. "I do not know anything anymore." She turned and walked out of the room. The guards followed her, leaving Jack alone. "What happens now?" Jack asked. Looked up at him, her golden eyes shining. "Now," she said, "everything changes." Sun rose over Prime, painting the crystal towers in shades of gold and pink. Jack stood at the window of his room, watching the light spread across the city. He had not slept. He did not think he could sleep, not until he knew what the Queen had decided. The door opened behind him. "Captain," it was Lord, the official who had greeted them on the first day. His face was different now. The contempt was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. "The Queen will see you. Come with me." They walked through the palace in silence. The halls were empty at this early hour, but Jack could feel eyes watching him from the shadows. Word had spread. Everyone knew what had happened. The human who had formed a soul bond with the princess. The human who had passed the test of the psychics. The human who had shown a depth of feeling that no one had thought possible. Lord led him to the crystal garden, the same garden where he had met, with the glowing flowers and the silent fountain. The Queen was waiting there alone. She looked tired. Her crown of living light was dimmer than before, and there were shadows under her golden eyes. She had been awake all night too, Jack realized. She had been struggling with the same questions that had kept him staring at the ceiling. "Sit," the Queen said, gesturing to a bench beside the fountain. Jack sat. The Queen did not sit. She stood among the glowing flowers, her white robes catching the soft light. "I have ruled this empire for 3,000 years," she said. "I have seen species rise and fall. I have watched civilizations build themselves up and tear themselves down. I have learned to judge quickly, to decide without hesitation, to do what is best for my people without regard for personal feelings." She paused, looking at the flowers around them. "And yet I do not know what to do about you." "What are the options?" Jack asked. The Queen smiled. It was a small smile, tired and sad. "I could have you killed. That would be the traditional response. A commoner who touches a member of the royal family is put to death. It is the law." "And?" "She would mourn, she would hate me, but she would live, and eventually she would heal." The Queen shook her head. "At least that is what I told myself last night. But the psychics tell me that a soul bond cannot be healed. If you die, part of her will die with you. She will never be whole again." Jack felt cold. He had not understood how serious the bond was. He had thought it was a cultural thing, important to the but not physically real. Now he understood. What he had done, without meaning to, had tied his life to forever. "What is the other option?" he asked. The Queen turned to face him. Her golden eyes searched his face, looking for something. "I could honor the bond," she said. "I could accept that my daughter has chosen you and make you part of her life officially. I could give you a title, a position, a place in my court." "You would do that for a human?" "For my daughter," the Queen's voice was firm. "Everything I do for her. I have given her everything I could give her except the one thing she needed most: time, attention, love." She looked away. "I thought I was preparing her to rule. I thought I was making her strong. Instead, I made her lonely. I made her so desperate for kindness that she bonded with the first person who showed her any." "That is not," Jack started. "Let me finish." The Queen held up her hand. "I am not blaming you. The psychics showed me what you are. A good man far from home, missing his own daughter. You saw a child in pain and you helped her. That is not a crime. That is," she paused, searching for the word. "That is beautiful. That is what we should all be." She walked closer and stood in front of him. "My people have looked down on humans for centuries," she said. "We thought you were primitive, simple, incapable of the higher feelings that make life meaningful. We were wrong. You showed more compassion in one afternoon than most of my courtiers have shown in 1,000 years." Jack did not know what to say. He sat in silence, waiting. "I have made my decision," the queen said. "You will not die. Instead, you will be given the title of royal guardian. You will be responsible for my daughters, her happiness, her growth. You will be the first non to ever hold noble rank in our empire." Jack stared at her. I do not know what to say." "Say yes," the queen said. "Say yes and stay, and help me give my daughter the childhood I was too busy to provide." "What about my own daughter, Emma?" The queen smiled again, and this time the smile was warmer. "Bring her here. Let her grow up in the palace let them learn from each other. Let your species and mine become friends, one family at a time." Jack thought about Emma. He thought about the video calls and the long absences and the guilt that never went away. He thought about what it would mean to have her here, safe, happy, growing up with a friend who would love her. He thought about, alone in her room, clutching a glowing flower. "Yes," he said, "I accept." The ceremony was held that afternoon in the same grand throne hall where everything had changed. But this time, the mood was different. The nobles still watched with curious eyes, but the hostility was gone. They had all heard what the psychics had found. They had all heard about the human who had shown pure compassion. Jack knelt before the queen while she placed a chain of silver around his neck. The chain held a crystal that glowed with soft light, the symbol of his new rank. "Rise, Lord," the queen said, "royal guardian of princess, noble of the empire." Jack rose. Beside the queen was glowing with happiness. She looked like a different person than the crying child he had found in the garden. She looked like she had hope. The queen turned to address the hall. "Today marks a new beginning," she announced. "Not just for my daughter, but for our empire and for humanity. We have learned that we underestimated this species. We have learned that compassion knows no boundaries, that kindness can bridge any gap. From this day forward, the empire will open its doors to humanity. We will trade with them. We will learn from them. We will grow together." The hall erupted in applause. Not all of it was enthusiastic. Some of the nobles still looked uncertain, but most of them clapped and many of them smiled. Ambassador was crying. Jack caught her eye and nodded. She had come here hopping for a simple trade agreement. She was leaving with something much more valuable. 3 months later, Jack stood at the landing platform, watching a shuttle descend from orbit. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. The shuttle landed, and the door opened, and a small figure came running out. "Daddy!" Emma crashed into him at full speed, her arms wrapping around his waist, her face pressing into his chest. Jack lifted her up and held her tight, feeling her warmth, smelling her hair, crying tears that he did not try to hide. "I missed you," Emma said into his neck. "I missed you so much." "I missed you too, sweetheart, but you are here now, and I am not going anywhere." He carried her toward the palace, where was waiting at the door. The princess looked nervous. She had never met another child before, not one she could talk to as an equal. Jack set Emma down. The two girls looked at each other for a long moment. "This is Princess," Jack said. "This is my daughter Emma." Took a deep breath. "Hello," she said. "I have never had a friend my age before. I am not sure how to do this, but I would like to learn if you would teach me." Emma looked up at her father, then back at. Then she smiled, the same bright smile that had lit up Jack's life since the day she was born. "Do you like playing pretend?" Emma asked. "I do not know. I have never tried." "Come on then." Emma grabbed his hand. "I will show you. We can be space explorers or princesses. Well, you are already a princess, so maybe I can be the princess and you can be the dragon." The two girls ran off into the palace, their laughter echoing through the crystal halls. Jack watched them go. Beside him, the queen appeared, her golden eyes following the children. "They will be good for each other," she said. "Yes," Jack agreed, "they will." And far above them, the twin sons of Prime shone down on a new chapter in the story of two species. A chapter that had begun with a simple act of kindness. A chapter that would reshape the galaxy. All because one human had seen a crying child and had chosen to help. The end.